girl mops the floor while and wiggling her sexy ass. Just then David came back. Looking at the hormones emanating from the young body in front of him, he could no longer hold back the restlessness in his heart. David picked up the girl in his arms. Like a wild animal, he pinned her to the mountain. However, the girl did not choose to resist. Instead, she closed her eyes. Jolene was an orphan. She had been raised in another family since she was a child, with no parents to protect her. Jolene's childhood was dark, even full of despair. So Jolene's greatest wish is that when she grows up, to be able to form a good family of her own. So when Jolene was 15 years old, she met her first husband, John. John was a polite man with glasses. He was a few years older than Jolene, and he appeared like the sun. He poured his love on Jolene. He melted the ice that had built up in her heart. The days after her marriage to John were the happiest days of Jolene's life. But since John didn't have a house, they were living with their uncle David. Her aunt was very unhappy with Jolene. She was always picking on her. But Jolene was trying to keep her marriage to John. No matter how much her aunt bullied her, she put up with it all. She thought that this happy marriage would be her salvation. But as she grew closer, Jolene came to realize John was behaving too childishly. He didn't have the responsibility of a normal adult. He only cries when he encounters problems. Never thought about how to solve them. Not even thinking about building a future. Before the wedding, John had promised that he would give Jolene a house, a sweet house just for the two of them. But now he's forgotten all sorts of things. Jolene's heart was becoming increasingly frustrated with the relationship. It was not what she had hoped for. So in the face of David's aggression towards her, Jolene was fascinated by the mature manliness of David. Not only did she not resist, but she enjoyed it. After this incident, the two of them often played poker when they were alone in the house, playing poker. Sometimes David would take Jolina out for a picnic. David fulfilled all of Jolina's fantasies about her husband. But after all, their relationship was not on the table, and you can't walk on the river without getting your shoes wet. Their affair. Aunt and John finally found out. Aunt was furious, and John could not accept this reality. Unable to bear the shock, he jumped off the bridge, ending his young life. David was charged, and Jolene was put in a juvenile psychiatric hospital. She can only be released when she becomes an adult. Life here is full of depression, an endless supply of pills, hysterical patients. Jolene became more and more frightened. She longed for the outside world. She wanted to pursue her happiness again. The girl uses her beauty to bribe an attendant just to escape from the mental hospital. But to her surprise, the nurse was so charmed by the girl, he promised to take her out. That night, the nurse dragged Jolene outside quietly. He managed to stuff Jolene into the trunk of the car and took her home. But later Jolene realized that she had escaped from the mental hospital, but she had fallen into another cage. The nurse's love for Jolene was paranoid and crazy. She wouldn't let Jolene leave. She was like a bird in a cage at home, without any freedom. Freedom and romance are always in Jolene's blood. She couldn't be tied down. Although this perverse love affair, Jolene was attracted to it for a while, but she finally chose to run away again. With no money for travel, Jolene would occasionally trade her body for some necessary funds. Finally, she settled down in a waitress, and gradually became a famous and beautiful waitress. Among them was a handsome, long-haired man named Kate. Kate was a rich kid. He often asked Jolene to serve him on the pretext of coming to dinner. He would ask Jolene to serve him by name. Kate was not only handsome and rich, he was full of romance. He was in full view of everyone. He confessed his love to Jolene with his guitar. What girl could stand such a flirtation? Once again, Jolene fell in love with him without surprise. Soon Jolene moved in with Kate. He took Jolene dancing in clubs. He took her to get tattoos with him, something she had never done before. It was as if a new world had opened up for Jolene. She smiled. She was so happy to be with Kate. So when Kate offered her a ring, Jolene said yes without any hesitation. But that day, Jolene noticed that Kate was always going out for no reason. She thought that her husband was cheating on her. Curiosity got the better of her. She followed Kate all the way to a hotel. But what she didn't expect was, Kate was not cheating on her husband. He was selling candy. Kate said he was doing it to make money for their future. That's the kind of talk that impressed Jolene. She didn't choose to call the police. She was caught up in Kate's lies of love. But no amount of lies can cover up the truth. That day, a woman with a child approached Jolene. She pointed and yelled at her. Until now, Jolene realized that she had been lied to by Kate, that he was already married. The so-called love. All the promises were just false. Feeling cheated, Jolene was furious, smashed up the tattoo store. She even found evidence of Kate's candy sales and sent him to jail. The girl dances sexily, showing off her talent. Sexy black professional clothes makes the young and beautiful girl became the most dazzling presence in the store. Soon a man is captivated by her. Jack is a successful host. He and her ex-husband John and ex-fiancée Kate. He was a gentleman. Jack exudes a gentlemanly. He had a certain air about him. The way he looked at Jolene. There was no longer any lewd glance. It was full of honesty. He didn't bother with petty tricks. Instead, he handed Jolene a gold card with no limit, asking if she would like to move in with him. After her relationship with Kate ended, Jolene has been living on the streets again. And now, a man who was rich and good to her offered her a place. Jolene has no reason to refuse, but the happy days come to an abrupt end early one morning. Jack told Jolene he had a very important meeting. He would ask Jolene to wait for him downstairs. No matter what happens, don't come up. Jolene was deeply disturbed, but she didn't ask any questions. Instead, she waited downstairs for Jack to come to her. But Jolene waited late into the night, but she never saw Jack come down. Jolene finally couldn't stand it anymore. She went upstairs to find Jack, only to find Jack in a pool of blood. The only man who had ever been true to her was gone. Jolene sat on a rock, clutching her arms tightly, alone and helpless. Jolene realized that she was the only one she could count on. She started trying to find a job, but because she had spent some time with Jack, she spent a lot of time with Jack. Jolene's demeanor changed. She was like a rich wife who had suffered a family change. She had an aura about her. She soon attracted a man named Paul. In the face of Paul's passionate advances, but Jolene had a problem in her heart. So when faced with Paul's proposal ring, Jolene seemed a bit confused because she had been married many times. Now marriage was not something she was looking forward to. Instead, it scares her a little. Paul said that he didn't mind Jolene's past. These words gave Jolene a lot of courage. Finally, she decided to fight for love once again. It wasn't long before they were married, but on their wedding night, Paul accidentally discovered the tattoo on Jolene's body. His attitude towards Jolene also changed rapidly. In such a situation, even after she gave birth to a son to Paul, still did not get any better. That day, Paul's parents found out about Jolene's past. Knowing the truth, Paul beat Jolene severely. Jolene took her son to a local lawyer for help, but the other side said because Jolene had not confessed her past before the marriage, it was probably fraudulent. They ended up taking Jolene's baby away from her. At first Jolene was devastated, but when she thought about Paul's family, she knew maybe the child would be a better home for Paul's family. And so, 25-year-old Jolene gave up on getting her baby back. She found a new job. From now on, she would no longer depend on anyone. She had to live on her own, in a bright and shiny way. After all, happiness can never be given by others. It has to be created by her own efforts. The movie is over. Follow me. We will see you next time.